In this video, we look at the top 10 biggest albums of all time on the Billboard 200 Albums chart. Tapestry by Carole King. Released in 1971, it was a raw and authentic collection of songs that spoke to the human experience. The first single from the album, It's Too Late / I Feel the Earth Move, was a huge success, spending 5 weeks at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. The album Tapestry spent 15 weeks on number 1 and stayed on the Billboard 200 Albums chart for 318 weeks. It still holds the record for the most consecutive weeks on number 1 by a female solo artist. It ended 1972 as the second biggest album of the year. It has sold an estimated 30 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling albums of all time. It has also been certified 14 times platinum by the RIAA. Tapestry won 4 Grammy Awards, including one for Album of the Year, and Carole King became the first female solo artist to win the Grammy for Album of the Year. The album's ability to capture complexities of life makes it one of the best albums of all time. All the Right Reasons by Nickelback. Nickelback was supposedly one of the most hated rock bands of all time, but the charts tell a different story. Released in 2005, All the Right Reasons, a powerhouse album, took the rock world by storm. The album debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 323,000 copies in its first week. It included iconic songs like Photograph, Far Away, and Rockstar, which all peaked in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. It spent a week on number 1 and stayed on the Billboard 200 for a total of 206 weeks. It was ranked the 13th biggest album of the 2000s. The album has now been certified Diamond by the RIAA. The Dr. Zhivago soundtrack. It was released on December 23, 2013 as the soundtrack for the 1965 film that starred Julie Christie and Omar Sharif. The album was produced by the French composer Maurice Jarre. He also composed the scores for movies like Ghost, Fatal Attraction, and Dead Poets Society. It is one of the best-selling soundtracks of all time. The album peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It won the Academy Award for Best Music Score and the Grammy Award for Best Original Score. Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. In 1995, the music landscape witnessed a seismic shift, the release of Jagged Little Pill. Its success was nothing short of meteoric. It topped the charts worldwide, earning critical acclaim and becoming a cultural phenomenon. Songs like You Oughta Know, Hand in My Pocket, and Ironic became anthems for a generation. The album spoke to people because it gave a voice to the frustrations and vulnerabilities of young people at the time. It peaked at number 1 and stayed there for a total of 12 weeks. It ended 1996 as the biggest album of the year in the US. It had huge sales, now certified 17 times platinum by the RIAA. It became one of the best-selling albums of all time, with sales of over 33 million copies worldwide. At the 1996 Grammy Awards, the album further solidified its impact when Alanis Morissette took home several awards, including one for Album of the Year and Best Rock Album, Rope in the Wind by Garth Brooks. In the early 90s, Garth Brooks was already a country sensation, but it was this album that catapulted him into stardom. Released in 1991, this album was a game-changer for the country music scene. Its singles, including Rodeo, The River, and Shameless, dominated country radio. The album debuted on number 1, selling 400,000 units in its first week. It stayed at the top spot for a total of 18 weeks on the Billboard 200 Albums chart. Rope in the Wind was the first country album to debut on number 1 on the Billboard 200, and it was certified 14 times platinum by 1998. Garth Brooks is the best-selling solo artist in US history. Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. Released in 1984, Born in the USA wasn't just an album. It was a cultural phenomenon. The title track, with its anthemic chorus, became a rallying cry for a generation. Many people still think it's a patriotic song, but it touched on issues like struggles of the working class, the impact of the Vietnam War on veterans, and the complexities of the American dream. It is relevant to this day. It debuted on number 9. When it was released, it stayed at the top of the Billboard 200 for 7 weeks. It ended 1985 as the top album in the US. The album has been certified 17 times platinum by the RIAA, and it has sold over 30 million copies worldwide. Fearless by Taylor Swift. In 2008, Taylor was already a rising star, but it was Fearless that catapulted her into another level. Released when she was just 18 years old, the album showcased her evolution as an artist and solidified her place in the hearts of fans worldwide. It has classic hits like Love Story, You Belong With Me, and Fearless. It showcased Taylor's gift for storytelling through songwriting. It debuted at number 1, selling 592,000 copies in the US in its first week, and spent 11 weeks at the top of the Billboard 200. It has now been certified Diamond by the RIAA at the 2010 Grammy Awards. Fearless made history when Taylor Swift became the youngest artist to win Album of the Year. Thriller by Michael Jackson. In 1982, Michael Jackson was already a global superstar, but Thriller made him a legend. Released at the peak of his career, the album showcased Michael's musical mastery, innovation, and versatility. The album spent a record 37 weeks on number 1 on the Billboard 200. It has now been certified 34 times platinum by the RIAA. It is the best-selling album of all time, with 66 million copies sold. It also earned a record-breaking 8 Grammy Awards in one night in 1984. It is regarded as the best album of all time by many. The Sound of Music soundtrack. Released in 1965, the soundtrack accompanied the cinematic masterpiece of the same name, starring Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer. The soundtrack features timeless classics like My Favorite Things and Sound of Music. Julie's breathtaking vocals were amazing on the album. It received multiple Academy Awards, including Best Original Score and Best Original Song for My Favorite Things. Fun fact, My Favorite Things was interpolated by Ariana Grande for 7 rings. The album spent 2 weeks on number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 500,000 copies in its first 2 weeks, and remained in the top 10 for 109 weeks. The album has sold more than 20 million records worldwide. 21 by Adele. In 2011, Adele was a rising star, but it was 21 that catapulted her into international stardom. Released at a time when pop music was dominated by electronic sounds, Adele's raw and soulful sound stood out, making a shift in the music landscape. It appealed to every generation, and with hits like Rolling in the Deep, Someone Like You, and Set Fire to the Rain, who dominated the charts. The album debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, with first week sales of 352,000 copies. It spent a total of 24 weeks on number 1 on the Billboard 200. It has now been certified 14 times platinum by the RIAA. 21 shattered sales records globally. It became the best-selling album of the 21st century, surpassing 30 million copies worldwide. At the 2012 Grammy Awards, Adele won 6 Grammys, including Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Record of the Year.